Hello and welcome back to the Alnwick Castle podcast. I'm Daniel Watkins, and today's episode is all about the castle's current project to open up our historic kitchens to visitors for the first time. In the last podcast, you'll have heard the history behind the kitchens. If you haven't listened yet, please do go back in our podcast feed and find the episode. But as we prepare to open the kitchens for the 2025 season, I spoke to two of the key people involved in what's been named Project Shurlock. The project head, Catherine Neal, and a returning guest to the podcast, our archivist, Chris Hunwick. We hope you enjoy hearing the two of them have a conversation about all of the work and research that's gone into the rediscovery of the life of the Great Kitchen at Alnwick Castle. As a quick note, before you listen to Catherine and Chris have their conversation, we did record this episode of the podcast in one of the old servants' dining halls at the castle. It is a large, echoey space, so you could hear some variations in sound quality through that conversation to give it that authentic Victorian castle feeling. Please enjoy. We are very happy to be joined on the Alnwick Castle podcast by two very important parts of Project Shurlock, Catherine Neal and Chris Hunwick. How are you both today?
Good, thank you. Yes, thank you very much for inviting us.
We are in the midst of the end of phase one of the project with all sorts of works going on. How has it been going in the lead up to the castle opening for the season?
Well, it's always a little bit tense as you get into the last week. And there's little odd snags and you're on a very tight timetable, but it feels like it's coming together. I'm sure it would have been the same when they were looking to actually open the kitchen. Yes. That there would have been an awful lot of scratching of heads going, oh, that's one little thing we didn't think of.
And of course, the research is ongoing. As soon as phase one opens, phase two we'll be researching. So
absolutely. It might give you 3 days off, Chris. But yes, just keep going. I mean, it's been an amazing process, hasn't it? It's just been absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, this is an area of the castle about which I probably knew the least before we started this project. With it being used by external people, we haven't had the occasion to look into it in any depth.
Yeah. And we're hoping, obviously, this is where we started, was with this photograph here of the kitchen and its staff, early 20th century. And I just love that moment where they're all stood there looking holding a ladle, gazing at their beautiful wares that they've made. And I just think, who are they? What are their lives? Where have they come from? Do they have family? Where did they go? What happened? Where are their descendants? What were they doing? What were they making? Who was enjoying that food? What did it taste like?
Yeah, I mean, it's marvellous to look at, aesthetically, very pleasing, and deliberately designed to look medieval in appearance.
Yes, very much so.
Yet incorporating the latest technology of the day.
Very much state of the art, isn't it? And I think the range is something that I feel like we've only just touched the surface with the range in terms of trying to understand how many pieces it had, how it worked.
Well, I was most surprised when the doors came off the cupboard that incorporated the workings for the range. I was fully expecting to find a Scotch mill, because we had a plan in the Clerk of Works series of plans for a Scotch mill.
Specifically for that area?
Well, that we don't know, but I had assumed. I'd made an assumption because we'd never seen inside the cupboard, and lo and behold, when the doors came off, it was a water wheel. It's not a Scotch mill at all.
It's a water wheel in there. I would love to get it out, but I don't think we should. Or be able to get in and have a really good look at it.
But it does look as if we have all the pieces, and we hope we can reinstate it.
Yeah, and put it back together. It is, as we said, it's a jigsaw. We had no picture except this. We can't see all of the bits. We had no corners, no edges, a few bits and pieces in the middle, but it is coming together. It is building that picture in the same way that it was built. We are building the picture of how it all worked.
Yeah,
So it's fair to say that this famous early 20th century photo of the kitchens at work was one of the starting points for the project, but you've both been going back to this photo over the past year, spotting new parts in it, figuring out pieces. It's been part of the research and the detective work, returning to those images that we do have.
Yes. Yeah. And we do have the names of kitchen staff at different periods, including this period.
Yeah.
But of course, we don't know which name applies to which face in the photograph.
Yes, who is that person? It's like that children's game. Who is this? And you describe them, and you're trying to then figure it out. And I think looking at it on I spent hours pouring on a computer screen, so zooming in on things, zooming in on a towel rail, or zooming in on someone's face, and comparing it to other photographs and going, is that the same time? The only way of deducing that really is looking at what they're wearing, and I spent a long time looking at brooches and looking at lace on collars to determine if the lace on one picture was the same as the lace on the other, and therefore, was it the same time, or was it that they were just still wearing the same blouse? Is that it's really difficult, isn't it, trying to figure it out, but fascinating.
And we assume that this is a presentation photograph, probably on the occasion of a royal visit. There are two royal visits in the early 20th century,
Yes.
1906 and 1908. The first one is the King, the second one is the Prince of Wales. And so it could be either of those two occasions.
Do we have the menu cards for both of those occasions?
We haven't specifically identified them yet, but there's a good chance.
Because
yes.
if I'm just thinking now, this minute, if we did, and we work with the food historian to look at the food in the picture, and he can say, that item there is that item there on the menu, then that will
brilliant.
help us date it.
Yes, it would. It would.
Yes, and goodness knows what they are. They're very exotic. I don't even know if you'd be allowed to eat them. I mean, they look, very, very decorative, don't they? Very decorative.
The other thing we know, certainly for the 1908 visit, is that temporary staff were brought in. Three chefs were specially brought in to augment the team. So again, we have suspicions as to which of the three French chefs.
And they were French chefs that came in. So who's looking the most French in the picture?
Yes, I think it's probably
those two.
These two
they
on
do
either
look.
side of the female chef.
They have a certain je ne sais quoi.
Yeah.
And perhaps this chap here with his sort of rather this is a special pastry chef hat, only worn by pastry chefs. So maybe him. Yeah, they do have a certain.
And if you look at the photograph of the team outside the Lion Arch, even more so, I would say.
Yes.
Holding a little creation of something.
Yes, I wondered what that was that he was holding. I have tried to zoom in on that and get the magnifier on it, but he's definitely decided it's something he wants to be photographed with.
Yes.
And I also like this chap at the back, who's just popped up, who we don't see in any. I don't think he even belongs to the kitchen, but he's just obviously popped himself in there.
So when you say research is ongoing, we've just heard it literally happen in front of people's ears. People will be able to see these photographs when they come and visit the kitchen. But what other kinds of sources have you been using over the past year to try and figure out all the different uses of these spaces that we've got open?
The Clerk of Works plans has been a vast treasure trove of information about the fittings in the kitchen, what type of hob, what type of oven was where, and in the larders, what the larders were used for.
Yes. And obviously, and sometimes the use has changed over the years. That was what was interesting. And in fact, actually looking at the plans and then seeing from the cold larder that originally there was going to be a door into the main kitchen, and you can actually see the lintel when you're stood in the cold larder, but the door is not there. That it was never built. So there were obviously things that were changed as they were going along.
And then receipts and receipted bills and invoices. We do have a vast quantity, especially for special occasions like the 1859 opening, but there are lots more to look into, and that's part of the ongoing research, to look at suppliers' invoices, but also building work and transport, rail fares for goods being shipped
goods coming up
from London.
It is a paper trail, isn't
Yes,
it? It is literally that paper trail where you kind of go, okay, there's a menu, that's what's being ordered, that's what's being made. Okay, are these items coming from the estate? You know, did the meat come from the estate? Where was the fish coming from? An awful lot of raisins.
Yes.
I seem to remember counting. I was thinking, that's a lot of pounds of raisins being consumed here. So.
Newspaper accounts is another
Yes.
rich vein. One always has to take them with an element of caution, the florid language of the press.
Absolutely. Yeah. Why let history get in the way of a good story?
And that's one of the puzzles, is this 1920s, 1930s reference to an electric railway or
Yes.
something of the sort in the kitchens. I mean, it's not out of the question, but we haven't found any evidence outside of the newspaper.
No tracks visible anywhere. Whether it was some sort of piece of equipment, I wondered whether it was a sort of Victorian trolley that came with its own tracks that you laid, and what, you know, it was kind of an IKEA flat pack job. I don't know. I did wonder about that because they were very keen on inventing new things and new equipment, and anything could help. So again, it's probably digging around in what kind of equipment was being invented at the time, because there'll be items of equipment we can't see in any photographs that they may have had.
Yes,
But a little railway would have been rather nice to find.
And then the use of the space over time.
Yes.
We have recently acquired images from St Cloud's State University archives of students cooking in what was the pastry kitchen, which turned into their kitchen, and the great kitchen became their dining hall.
Yes.
We've got some interesting student photographs.
Yes, some very fantastic medieval banquets going on in 1990. And lovely to see the kitchen still being used. There's a fantastic picture, I think, in that pile over there, when it was the Teacher Training College, pre-St Cloud's, and a girl is washing up.
Yes.
Virtually in sort of the exact same position as somebody would be washing up 100 years previously. It's absolutely beautiful. If it was painted, it would be a Vermeer, the light is wonderful and she's utterly absorbed in what she's doing. And just wonderful to see that happening. But of course, over time, you know, no Teacher Training College, fewer St Cloud students, and gradually lots of things stored down there, which has been good, because the storage, and that, it's almost like put it in the loft, isn't it? Put it in the larders. That storage actually preserved the larders in many ways, because nobody was revamping them. It was like, that's a big storage room, we'll just keep putting things in there. So that in itself has been a benefit to us.
Yes, yeah. And this image you're talking about, of the timeless washing up.
Very timeless, washing up, yes.
And that's, I think, what we're trying to do with the paper drops, is give that timeless sense of a person doing a job in a space.
Absolutely, a person doing a job and being focused on their work. And that's what they were doing. They were working here, living here. I mean, we're in the lower servants' dining hall here. We know there was an upper servants' dining hall. Clearly, there was social hierarchy, very Downton Abbey, you know, through the servants themselves. This is a big space. We think it had a table, over 40 foot table in here. So that's a lot of people to be fed on this side of the operation, as well as providing beautiful banquets in the staterooms and on the beautiful dining table there.
So that ties us into the two big kinds of work that's been going on for phase one. There've been the enabling works, clearing out those larder rooms. The Great Kitchen looks very different now to how it did when the project started with the first walk around in February 2024. But there's also the detective side of work in figuring out all the details, which has kind of inspired the name Project Shurlock. So, would you like to talk about the enabling or the detective?
The detective.
Start with the detective. So why Project Shurlock?
Well, we tried various names. We were going round and round, and then there was a gentleman who had started. Now, I can't remember the dates, Chris, but I don't know if you will. Daniel might remember the dates, actually.
He first appears in the census records as working at the castle in 1881, I think. He has moved up to Alnwick, and he's around for at least 25 years after that.
Yes.
And by the time he's listed, by the end, he's listed by his name, Shurlock, not his job role, whereas everybody else is listed as their job role, but he is Shurlock. So it just felt very apt that there was a play on words and we were being detectives, and Chris wears tweeds, as you can see. And well, yes, you can't see, but he's wearing a very nice tweed jacket. All he needs is a deer stalker and he would be Sherlock. And we are being detectives, history detectives. Yeah. And we want the public to help us do that. That's the other element, I think, is to say there's so much that we can do, but within the photographs themselves, there may be people who know they had ancestors who worked here, who may have a photograph of them and may recognise them in this. So we're working, we've got press releases going out this week, and we're trying to reach people to say, listen, if you know you've got somebody who worked here or lived here, please get in touch, because we've got part of the jigsaw puzzle and we think you might have the other part of the jigsaw puzzle. And that's exciting. Yeah. So we are history detectives.
And our Sherlock is spelt with a U.
Well, yes, you didn't have to give that one away, Chris, did you?
The rest of the project title, it has the phrase "Rediscovering the Life of the Great Kitchen" at Alnwick Castle. It's not just the space themselves, it's what was happening in the spaces through the kitchen, but not just that, it's all the uses that came after it stopped being a kitchen. It didn't just stop in 1859.
No, it kept going. We know it was still being used in the 1930s. We know during World War II that the Newcastle Girls' High School evacuated here. We know they were using the space. We know that Northumberland County Council then came in and had a teacher training college here through the 40s, right through until the sort of 60s, 70s, and then St Cloud's University coming in through the 80s. So that in itself, those people have their memories, and this is about collecting all those memories across the year to give us that picture of the life. So we are very much in that rediscovering phase. Next phase, we will start pretty quickly in terms of restoring. We are beginning to restore doors, looking at items, restoring phase, and then revitalising, really trying to bring that life back as we interpret the space and look how people move around the space, find out what people are interested in, what they want to hear about, the stories that they would like to hear about. And it's just about sharing those stories and bringing the space back to life. Hopefully having a banquet in there at some point. Yeah, because that would never have been allowed.
So that's the detective side. How about the big works that have got on? Because, as I said, the kitchen physically looks very different to how it did a year ago.
Yes, it does. The enabling works have been huge. I think bigger even than we imagined. You never know. We knew we had to tackle two big things that had to be tackled. One, the walls, and two, the floors. Because we knew there'd been an awful lot of tiles and things put down through the 60s. We had no idea what was underneath those floors, and we didn't know if we were going to lift those floors and find that all the stone had been removed and it was just concrete. And we were absolutely thrilled to discover in the main kitchen that we could almost lift the whole sort of 1960s floor in one go. It could be chopped up and lifted, and underneath was this beautiful stone floor. In a couple of the larder room spaces, the game larder had been turned into an office by St Cloud University. We know now that was held back by the housekeeper very early on when the teacher training college came in. She'd reserved some rooms back, and I think because those rooms were reserved, there must have been storerooms of some kind. St Cloud came in and just put carpet tiles on the floor, didn't put any underlay, didn't put any glue, just the carpet tiles, and so we could lift one up, and there was a beautiful sandstone floor that looked probably as good as it did the day it was put down. So that was a huge job. It took months working on the floors, months and months with different contractors doing different elements. The walls, we are still in debate of the walls. We've been doing paint analysis on them, looking at different ways of removing the modern emulsion paint, looking at the different colours of lime wash that are on there, trying to figure out when the walls went from being stone to lime wash, probably a practical consideration by the cook going, listen, this is health and safety wise, this isn't very clean, having all this fat going on the walls, and we need something we can clean, so lime wash is put on. So that's been a big job, looking at fire exits and security. We're still sharing this around the space with the university, And obviously there are areas that we're not going into yet. There's about 15 spaces altogether, and we're not going into all of them in the first phase. So we needed to put new cameras in, review the fire safety, review fire detection, all that kind of thing, really making sure that the space was future-proofed, ready for the next phase.
And I think in its form now, stripped back, you get that vision of Salvin's of a mid-19th century medieval kitchen.
Yes.
On a monastic scale.
Yes, it's interesting you say on a monastic scale, because I can remember going down the first time the floor was actually empty and there was nothing else in the room. The floor was stripped back, and standing in the middle. When you stand with your back to the range and you look at the beautiful lancet windows in front of you, it feels like you're in a medieval cathedral, and you look up at the lantern and you got that sense of actually your cook was almost like, your sort of high priest behind the table, and there was this beautiful table that would have been laid out with cloths and all of the knives and all of the instruments that were needed to create this wonderful creation. So there was a very structured, almost theatrical, religious feeling about it, which he had captured in the architecture, and gives you that sense when you're in the space.
Yeah, and this was the only area of the castle interior that Salvin was allowed to put his view on, because the Italians got the job in the main state room.
Yes, absolutely. It was his pièce de résistance, wasn't it? Very much so, I think. And I hope he will be pleased with what we're doing.
Yeah, yes, I'm sure.
For people who will be coming this year, what are you most excited for them to actually see and experience when they come down here?
I think the space itself is you walk in and you're affected by the space. But then for me, I think it's this early Victorian technology that's been incorporated into it, such as the water wheel and the spit, the fridge in the cold larder, beautifully fashioned in a nice wooden case, but then inside Feetham and Co. of London supplying this machinery for keeping things cold.
It is a very beautiful fridge. I'm not sure how practical it would be these days, but it is a really lovely fridge. I think for me, what's going to be really interesting, because people are always asking, where are the kitchens? And we've never been able to show them, is coming from the opulence and the grandeur and the sheer goldiness of the state rooms, and that wonderful sort of golden aura that you get from the lighting and the decor in there. And then coming down through the corridor, which of course we did some restoration work on a number of years ago, coming down through the servants' corridor and then into the kitchen, and that kitchen being another counterpoint, and understanding just how many people were working in this area and across the estate, that this was a big operation. It was almost on a factory level if you were turning out meals, for 600 people and banquets. It was its own little machine, and I think that's what's going to be interesting, is that counterpoint.
Yes, yeah, and if we can in the future have some kind of model moving
that would be
that could illustrate how the different parts of the castle interconnect and how it operated.
Yes, I think that would be something. It's finding that way, isn't it? How do we best tell that story and show people just how it worked? You do feel like you need a model or an automaton or something that shows that literally the machinery, but also the machinery of the people.
Yes,
and how that went, because everybody had their job to do and their place. And if they didn't do their job, then that was a crack. Things fell down. It all had to work very tightly together.
Yes, yeah.
Have you got any favourite discoveries from Phase 1 from the past year?
Nuts.
That was brilliant.
The nuts were brilliant. So to describe it for people, this fantastic fridge that we've been talking about. It has a top half with doors and a lower half with two very, very, very big, heavy drawers. And the drawers had to come out in order for us to be able to get underneath to lift the tiles. And when the drawers came out, there's a little ledge in between the drawers, and very neatly and artistically, a little creature, we like to think a mouse, had put its little hazelnut and a walnut. I don't know how it got a walnut in there, but it had obviously found its way up through a drainage channel and in, and laid these. And we were like, what are we going to do with the nuts? We don't want to touch the nuts, but we want people to see the nuts. It took a number of weeks, didn't it? We were working with a brilliant restorer, and everybody was trying to think of ways that we could lift these nuts without moving them. Anyway, he came up with a way I will not explain because I don't really understand it, of encasing the sort of nuts, not fully, but just the bottom, very, very edges of them to keep them still. And then we actually removed the piece that they were on because that was loose. And hopefully we will have the nuts on display.
Yes. Yes.
But nuts is probably it, isn't it?
Is that unanimous?
Oh, yes. I would also perhaps highlight wandering around the castle with Daniel trying to work out where the lift shafts operated.
Yeah.
Which we did figure out.
We did, yeah.
Yes. And lifts for people and lifts for food. Multiple lifts for coal.
Yeah.
Multiple lifts all over the place.
Yeah, far more than I think I appreciated.
And the last question. Phase 1 is almost ready for opening this season. Are you looking forward to Phase 2?
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes, very much so. Very much so.
Excellent. Well, Chris, Catherine, thank you both very much for being on the podcast. And we hope that everybody will come and visit the kitchens and appreciate all of the work that you've both been doing over the past year.
Very
Brilliant.
much hope so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.
You can see the results of Phase 1 of Project Shurlock from Friday the 28th of March when Alnwick Castle opens for our new season. We hope you'll then return for Phase 2 and for the phases after that. The project is ongoing, with new discoveries being made all the time. Keep an eye on our social channels and the podcast feed as we check in with the kitchens again in the future. If you enjoyed the podcast, please do give us a like or a share, a review or a recommendation. It all helps with exposure for the podcast. We'll be back on the last Wednesday of next month with our annual Shakespeare-themed episode. Until then, I've been Daniel. Thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.